is going to be based on that point. But this year I've asked this church to really step out and to really begin to walk in an area they've never known. And when you begin to walk in an area that you've never known, the supernatural presence of God, or the works of God, or the power of God, you're walking new ground. And you know as well as I do, the first time you do something, you're prone to error. Is that true? You ever seen me play soccer? It's pretty bad. I do a lot of handballs. I'm like, I just play by the rules. So you don't know. And then the enemy can take that opportunity to subtly tell you, well, that's not the rules. It's okay to the pastor. You can cheat. You think I'm joking? You think people don't do that? I'm serving God, so I get a little bit more leverage than you do. That's actually incorrect. Jesus says you're more accountable. And so I'm going to say the same to you, because it's not about pastoral work here. If you're choosing to serve God in a greater ministry, all of us are being called to a higher standard. And so as we continue to grow in the works of God, I'm asking this church to grow in the character of God, the heart of God, the love of Christ, the forgiveness of Christ, and the compassion He carries to serve people. Now some of you may be saying, Michael, I understand that, but you don't realize the things I deal with every day are very trying. It's not that I want to wake up each morning and be very upset with someone. The circumstances around me are very difficult. And it caused me to reflect or react or to even bend my own morale, my own morals, my own rule book. And I don't want to, but it bends me. Now here's all I want to tell you, friends. If I'm the enemy and I have one shot, I'm going to shoot at the person who matters most in people's lives. Does that make sense? I hate to be mean about that. But you don't recognize many of you are the source of life for not only yourself, but many people around you. Now you may not see it, but a guy with horns does. Does that make sense? Many of you realize that your behavior, your character, the way you lead people is a source of life for many around you, even unspoken people. They won't tell you, but you're the only reason they're making it. And so it's very important. And I just want to put a verse up to kind of hammer that in, and then we'll transition. 1 Peter 4, verse 12. 1 Peter 4, verse 12. He says, Beloved, don't think it's strange what's happening to you. Don't think it's strange concerning the fire trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened. I'll leave that verse there for a moment. What you're dealing with, is that really a surprise to God? No. And so if we begin to justify the way we react in anger or verbal violence or bitterness or even just, I give up, God will just give you this verse this morning, because some of you needed to hear this. It's not really something odd to God. It's like, oh, that came out of left field. It's not even that unique to Him. If anything, God this morning is going to show you how to rise up. I want to just transition to something more positive, but God is going to show you how to rise up. Because, friends, I have been spending weeks now showing you how to step into your calling, how to begin to walk into the ordination which God had already prepared. And remember what we gave last week? Remember the main scripture from last week? Without looking at your notes. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. Before you were created, I knew you. I formed you in the womb. I ordained you a prophet to the nations. And what I showed you is that many of you, God, as I say many, all of you that love Jesus, God had made you with a purpose, no different than when I make a chair, I had a reason for it. I don't need to be asked what's my purpose, but for many of us, we're questioning what our purpose is. And if you've understood that message, and you recognize that God has a greater purpose, that was the title last week, a greater purpose, then don't be surprised if something goes wrong. Does that make sense? People say, man, the minute I chose Jesus, things went downhill. Like, is that really a surprise? Now you're standing up for what's good, and the guy who's the source of evil says, you're a problem. But you know in this church, we're problem solvers. And that's what I want to show you this morning. We are made to solve problems. Not only do you have a greater purpose, this morning I want to show you how to really step into your calling as a ministry. How to really work into that. So I want to ask you this question. I want us just to take a moment. I'm not trying to just hurt people's feelings. I don't want people to feel sullen. By the end of this message, I think you're going to feel really encouraged. You see, what is really the greatest problem in this world? What was it? Genesis chapter 3. What happened? Sin. The fall of man to sin. And did God deal with it? By sending whom? His Son. Now, what makes you think the greatest problem in your life can't be solved by God sending you? Does that make sense? People are important to God. And you're important to God. And you have a value to God whether you believe it or not. And if the greatest problem in this universe is sin, and God solved it by sending His Son, what makes you so different? That if you walk in the image of God, that if there's a problem, you're going to walk towards it. Does that make sense? I want us to have a paradigm shift. That when problems come your way, you say, you know what? It's going to get fixed because I'm being sent there. This problem is coming to me for one reason. For me to what? Solve it. Well, how would you know that? Again, sin. Did God turn away and go, well, you know what, Adam, you're dead. You know what? You're a waste of time. No, God looks at it head on and sends His Son that way. So I hope I've got your minds and your hearts in this. I'm not trying to make you feel down. What I want to show you is it's time for us to be mature in our behavior, mature in our faith, and look at our problems face on and say, it's over. Your days are numbered. We're going to see this to an end. We're not going to become strong dragging a bag of issues. No one becomes strong. No one's successful walking around with their problems. People who are successful clearly do not care. I'm not saying you won't have a bad day, but you can't bring a bag of problems together. So I told you the story. The fall of man. And God solved it through His Son Jesus. Not only solved it, but a victorious solution. Not just barely making it, barely ending it in. And here's my question for you. When God sent Jesus to this earth, did He have a plan? Did He have a strategy? Or did He just wing it? A strategy, right? A strategy. I mean, really, some believers still want to say, I'm going to live the way I live, and what happens is going to happen. And I'll find out when I get there. But if the greatest problem on this world required a strategy and understanding, why should yours not require one? Does that follow this? And so what I want to show you this morning is how God operated through Jesus with a very determined strategy, a mindset that will help us formulate our strategy and our model and our mindset so that we can begin to conquer the things that we deal with. Does that follow that? So let me ask you again. I mean, did really Jesus show up in Bethlehem and go, here I am. Like, well, what time is it? Oh, okay, it's breakfast. Let's go eat. No, this man was very unique. This man was very unique. My friends, let me ask you this. When it comes to strategy, in a worldly sense, who seems to be the most successful when it comes to strategy? I'm not trying to be rude here. List some organizations that are very strategic and very successful. Apple, Microsoft, Toyota, sure, we listed some. Right? Is that fair? The government? Sure. But really, these are all organizations, right? The church is an organization, and the world has an organization. Both use strategy, both have understanding, both don't just wing it. And yet the most biggest companies in this world spend hours of study and organization to create strategy to become successful. But when it comes to church, like, that sounds like business talk to me. Why do I need that? Is there a reason certain corporations are more successful than others? Or is it just happenstance? They get up every morning, the CEO goes, well, flip a coin? Okay, buy stock. No, friends. They have an understanding. And yet the believing body says, we're going to be global world changers. We're going to touch nations. And when it comes to strategy, like, I don't know. I mean, I read the webpage. They got booked flights there. But yet corporations that start in a garage, like this guy Elon Musk, who started PayPal, everybody knows his name. This is the world, my friends, and the world is better than us? No. I want to tell you about a parable in Luke 16. I'm just going to summarize it. It's about the parable of the unjust steward. And he's told, hey, I'm going to put you out. You're getting fired. He goes, you know what, where am I going to go? I can't dig. I don't want to beg. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to take all my master's debts. I'm going to rewrite them for a little bit less. You know what he's doing? He's creating favor with other hiring managers. Places of opportunity. And guess what Luke 16, Luke 16 verse 8. What does it say? Luke 16 verse 8. Just bear with this thought. We're going to get our minds thinking this morning. So the master commanded the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. That hurts my feelings. Did you read what I said? Did you read that? That hurts my feelings. You're telling me the sons of this world are more shrewd than the sons of light. What he's saying is there are corporations like Walmart that are billions strong in their churches yelling at people for money. What is the deal? What is the deal? Do you understand what I'm saying? Somebody's smarter than somebody. That's not right. I'm of the mindset that Jesus is the most brilliant man that will ever live on this planet. He's also God, but he's also fully man. And he is the most brilliant man. I believe that we can look at his strategy and we can rise up into a bigger organization. Now, I'm not talking about for this church. I'm talking about for you. If you have any heart to stand up for God, you're not going to go out there and go, well, I hope it works. You want to say, I understand. I have a strategy. I'm not going to wing it when I get sent out. I'm going to know what I'm doing. Do you understand the framework here? Are you all okay with this?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So let's do this, my friends. We're going to go to Luke chapter 2. And in Luke chapter 2, it's one of the few chapters where we get to read about a young Jesus. And in this chapter, we find out that Joseph and Mary, his parents, are still alive. And they go back to Jerusalem, as they do every year, for the Passover, which is the law of Moses. They have to go back home and celebrate the Passover. And having completed that, they go back home. Right? The parents go back home. Where's Jesus? He stays back. And they're surprised because they didn't know this. Now I want you to read what it says here. Luke 2, 45 through 47, please. Luke 2, 45 through 47. We're all get on page, don't worry, guys. So when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. And verse 46 says, Now so as it was, after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. I want you to just put those few verses up together and hold that thought for a moment. The first thing, which is not this morning's message, but I found it very unique. It says after 3 days they found Jesus. That sounds like the resurrection, doesn't it? I mean, like, you've been missing, but you're up to business. You're up to something. Now, what is Jesus doing? The first model, the first principle we want to recognize that even before you start your business, your ministry, your calling, what is this young Jesus doing? He's gathering data. He's polling his audience. He's finding out what they know and they what? Don't know. Y'all missed it. One more time. Listen carefully. This young Jesus was about to set out on the most powerful business organization the world will ever know, the church. Starts as a young man by asking questions. So what do you mean by this Messiah? Who do you think that is? Why do you think Israel is not the top dominant power right now? Why is Rome your boss? Who's David? Why does he matter to the Messiah? Think about it. This guy is tiny. He's a young man or a boy. So much so that he's following his dad around. And yet when it comes to his calling, his business, he goes, I need to know my audience. I want to know what they think. Who are my what? My competitors. Do you think these guys are going to become a problem when he starts? No, they do these guys become a problem when he starts running his own corporation? Yes. As a matter of fact, in John, it says he argues with them. Do you think he remembers that point of view? This is Jesus. He doesn't forget. This same Jesus is going to talk to these guys and say, I know what you said when I was a child because I asked you. I already know what you're upset about. Think about it. That's why he asked questions so pointed. That's why he was so sly. Because he would just say things on the sluff just to irritate them. He's like, I already know. I believe Jesus was operating as just man form, not only God form. And so he's like, hey, I have a question for you. The Messiah, whose son is it? Is it David? If it is, why do they call him Lord? I believe he was preparing himself for his ministry long before he stepped into it. And so my friends, what I'm trying to teach you very humbly this morning is this. If you say, God's going to use me, God has a calling for me, I'm going to be ordained into his ministry, don't just wait till that day and say, well, now I'm going to get started. Do what? Even in your youth as a spiritual young man or woman, you can begin to ask questions. Can I share a story for you? This is exactly what I did. When I first got saved, I would just meet people in my house and I would ask questions to people that knew God. I say, hey, have you ever heard God talk? What is the Holy Spirit to you? Do you have dreams? Do you know what they mean? And we boil down to, do you know God? I'm not being rude, do you know God? And I began to ask people questions one by one to as many people as I found. Not necessarily knowing what God was doing with me fully, But guess what he did? Now I'm standing here. Because now I know people. And I recognize that people have been in church and have a lot of questions. And not everybody has all the answers. And they have just the same problems that everybody does outside. Did you understand that? God did the same thing with me. He just had me as a young believer, questioning, what's going on in church? Why is it like this? Is this the same way it's been for the last 50 years and there's no difference? What's wrong? And now you see me standing here. I'm just sharing. We can continue. You say, Michael, you're taking this business thing a little too far. Would you mind reading verse 49 and 50? Verse 49 and 50 tells us this. The parents come back looking for them, looking for Jesus. And he said to them, why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my what? Father's business. You think that's like a play on words? A business. This is a businessman talking as a young boy to his parents. What's his dad? A carpenter. What do they think Jesus was going to be? A carpenter. See, your calling and your bloodline are different. My bloodline is Jesus. See, many of us say, well, I'm a teacher, I'm a student, I'm an engineer, or I'm in the med field. That's great. Jesus is a carpenter. But what is he going to tell his parents? And what do you say to God? I must be about my business, my ministry, my calling, my organization. Can you follow that? When? Now. That's simple. Now. Not 10 years from now. Not 2019. When I say 2018 is different for you, it's because it's now. Does that make sense? It's now. So now you must begin to prepare your hearts to step into who you're really going. I don't care if you're 100, 12, or 35. I really don't. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's pretty young. If y'all can understand that story. He's not older. He's staying with his parents. And so he recognizing that there was a bigger calling. But look at verse 50. This is a world. The world says this way. They don't understand. They don't even understand what he said. How many realize Jesus says a lot of things, but not everybody understands them? That's the Gospels. Parable and understanding after understanding. He will speak to people, and they're like, oh, I don't know what he said. That's a tragedy. Now, my goal and hope this morning is, by the end of the service, you're going to say, I know exactly what he said. I know exactly what he's doing. And guess what? As Jesus leads us, we will take those principles and then implement them into our organization, which is for each of you. My friends, let me ask you this. What kind of business is it really? What kind of business is it really? Yes. So it's a business of people. The business Jesus is speaking about is a business of people. Not money, not fame, not some great signboard with a big glowing cross. Nothing wrong with those things. If you want to do that, good for you. I'm good with a big cross. But that's not the issue here. What was the business? What was he doing? Who was he talking to? People. You know what we call a business of people in today's talk? I used it earlier. What do we call a business of people? We call it a government. Do y'all get that? We call it a government. And for his conversation, he calls it a kingdom. The government for him is the kingdom. We call it government. Now read Isaiah 9 verse 6 and you'll understand what I just said. Isaiah 9 verse 6, it says, for unto us a child is born, for unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder. You can just swap that word with the kingdom. Y'all get that? Y'all understand me? I like to do this kind of stuff at the men's meeting, but I thought we'd do it this morning. The government is upon his shoulder. He is a man organizing a business of people, otherwise called a government, otherwise called a kingdom. So this morning, I didn't give you the title to just now. I call it kingdom business. Or you can use the word kingdom strategy. And that same strategy will not only affect your ministry, it can affect your lives. You can use these same tools to help you operate in your business, your friendships, even your calling. You follow that? Jesus was not limited to just talking about the Bible. The very principles he uses are going to touch lives, and we're going to transition to that in our next point. Is everybody okay so far? And the men's meeting had the luxury of pointedly asking people questions. So I'm just going to pause as much as I can. I want to just recap. Jesus didn't come to this earth to wing it and hope it works. He came with a strategy. You know how he put it? He said, all things that my Father told me, I speak to you. And all things he showed me, I what? I do them. There was a strategy. It was ordained in heaven. It's a divine instruction. And this divine organization will rise above every kingdom and power there is in this universe. It's up to us to understand. When people say churches aren't successful, I would say it's not because the design is not successful. It's because we're limited. And I want to break glass ceilings this morning. So to do that, I want to give you the next term. And we're going to find that in Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5, I'm going to give you the background for time's sake. Luke chapter 5, Jesus heads to some water. It's not an accident. There's some fishermen there, namely James, John, Peter, and probably Andrew. And he tells Peter, hey, let me go out in this boat with you. Launch me out. They say they do that so his voice would carry. It's like a microphone. When you speak on water, it will carry a voice. And he speaks to this crowd, and when he's done teaching them, he tells Peter, hey, let down your net for a catch. Peter tells him, I've been toiling all night, I got nothing. He said, well, but at your word, I'll do it anyways. And you know the story, the net comes up so full, it's almost breaking. And he's a signal to his partners, come here, come here, come here. And when they get to the land, Peter tells Jesus something very unique, Luke 5. He says, depart from me, for I am a sinful man. I want you to read Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5, verse 10, 11. Luke chapter 5, 10, 11. So also were James and John. They also saw this, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, don't be afraid. From now on you will catch men. The term is casting your vision. The next point you must understand is casting vision. What do I mean by that? Your organization has a vision. Otherwise, it's blind and doesn't know where it's going. And Jesus exemplified it in this chapter. And don't make it really elementary, because it's not. You may have heard my words, but I don't think you caught the analogy. Here's a carpenter that says, I have a different infrastructure that can affect your marketplace. Did you understand that? This carpenter is going to be a consultant to a lifelong and probably family generational fisherman. And he says to him, do it again. He said, no, there's no point. I came up with nothing. He says, try me. He does again. This time he says, I've come up with more than I can handle. He's casting a vision. What is a vision? What is this vision? It's the abundance out of nothing. Life from the dead. Hope to the hopeless. Freedom to the slave. Healing to the sick. Open eyes to the blind. The vision is the life that Jesus offers us. And instead of just being some theological discussion, he says, no, try me. And he tries it, he says, there's an abundance in the word of Jesus Christ. The life he gives me. The abundant life of Jesus Christ. He's casting a vision that says, you're going to live a way that you've never seen in your life. It wasn't like Peter said, wow, look at that. Third time this week. Yeah. He called his friends and said, come meet a man who told me everything I ever did. Come see a man who can heal my mother-in-law. Come see a man who can raise dead people to his voice. Do you follow that? There's a vision that Jesus carries that's very intentional. And that vision is bringing life. And so the first thing you must understand that once you begin to recognize that God is going to use you at a much greater level, you begin to recognize that the crowd is lost and without a shepherd, then you must give them a vision. And the vision is this: God is giving an abundance where there is none. Life. And the abundant life. John chapter 10, verse 10, you know it. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come to give life, and that abundant. That is the vision of Jesus. And he's not so separated. He says, I have to talk in carpenter terms. For your vision to be very successful, for your business to operate at its peak, you have to learn how to communicate with every kind of craft there is. You have to be able to help the man who's got 3 kids Just like Paul, who wasn't married, was able to talk about marriage at a level that's far beyond. We still write books on it. And he doesn't talk about his wife. People say, oh, I must have been married. Nobody really knows. But the truth is, he seems to know a lot about marriage. Jesus was never married, and yet he describes marriage and its principles and how to raise children. And he doesn't physically have children. His vision teaches you how to be successful in your workplace. Right? Is that true? Your vision must be able to impact all walks of life for it to become a global vision. I hope you understand. I'm okay if in a young step of life, you're saying, well, I'm just focused here. I want to just focus on this group of people. Good. Good, we're going to come back to that. I'm not saying that all of you have to go, I have to have a world vision, I have to touch every nation in the universe. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the ability of this church, this organization that God has created, goes far beyond your eyes will ever see. That's what I want you to believe. You know why? Because when you get caught in this box, and God says, I want you over here, you're going to say, well, how did you do that? What do you mean I'm going to be used elsewhere? You have to believe, no. What I was given was already able to go anywhere it's needed. You may be used here as a training ground, and you're going to see it goes beyond that. And we're going to step into that here shortly. The next principle I want you to understand. I want you to write the word. It must be sustainable. The organization, the business that you carry within your spirit must be sustainable. And I'm going to explain in very simple terms. When you go into an Apple store or a Microsoft store, you see Bill Gates standing at the front welcoming you? No? You don't, right? Does that mean he doesn't work there? No? Does that mean he's not involved or his vision's not operating? Maybe you don't catch it yet. In a sense, physically, can Jesus be everywhere at once when he was in the flesh? Not really. But yet his ministry still was. Do you understand that? For it to be sustainable, you must train and raise up leaders who can operate in your place. For your business to really sustain a greater impact, a greater calling, a greater level of availability, you're going to have to raise people up that can operate just like you. Because it'll just look like this. Maybe you're like me and you really like McDonald's. And McDonald's is awesome. You get a Big Mac, big fries, Sprite for like $2. And then you can get your ice cream cone for free on the way out. You're like, there's a long line to give you ice cream. And you're like, that's awesome, but you found the only McDonald's is in California. What good is it to you? If your calling is so profound and you can only find it in Houston, what good is it to the sick man in Maine? You have to believe that to make it sustainable, you have to raise up leaders to stand for you. I want to give you a story. It's in the Bible. Forget my stories, the better ones are in Scripture. We're going to look at Exodus chapter 18. Just write it down. It's a long story. There's a story about a man named Moses. And he's a father-in-law named Jethro. Jethro says, hey, Moses, what's going on? Well, I sit here all morning until the sun goes down. And I sit in this black chair. And I wait for people to come up. And they come deal with Michael. All morning, all night. And Jethro's like, dude, you haven't eaten? You kind of stink. You need a bath. He goes, this is not going to be good for you. You know the story? This is not going to be good for you. Not everybody can lean on one man. I'm not saying Jesus wears that, but listen, I'm talking to you. I'm talking about Jesus. And he says, do this. What does he tell him? Get some people just like you. Let's read it together. Exodus 18, verse 17 and 18. Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing that you do is not good. I love to think that there are a lot of charismatic superpowers across this world. I'm not going to list names to insult anybody. And you got to get in line for them. And you got to go over there and they might be praying for 3,000 people. Maybe you're 3,001. And he gets his bags and leaves. That sucks. You know what I'm talking about. You're waiting to get prayed for and the guy stops and, well, praise God, let's take the offering. I've seen it. You think you're laughing. I've seen it. Or people waiting to get prayed for. I've seen it. And so this Jethro says, you know what? It's not going to work. So the thing you do is not good. You may think you're a superstar, but it's not really all that good. Both you, verse 18, both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. What was the word I gave you for this principle? Come on, guys. Sustainable. He said, your business model is not sustainable. You're going to die off. I don't care if you got all the zeal in the world. Good. You cannot pray for 3,000 people every night. I have studied God's generals with a passion. It's a term for people that came across the threshold of supernatural and lived a supernatural life. A lot of them died in a rough way. And they all say they didn't sleep, they didn't eat, they were divorced, their kids were this way, and they all struggled. I said, man, God, how do they call it God's generals? Jethro would probably say, man, you guys are wearing yourself out. 8 hours, thousands to get healed. Thousands. Where's his predecessor? I'm sure somebody there is. What, 2? We got to look for him? It shouldn't be that way. That's not the church. Jethro says, you need to raise people up. Let's keep reading Jethro's advice. Verse 21 through 22, same chapter. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men. The word is able. Not people that don't care. Able men. And we'll keep reading. Who fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. Let's talk about money and fame, friends. And place such over them to be rulers over thousands, rulers over hundreds, rulers of 50, and rulers of 10. And let them judge the people. It's a different context. At that time they had judges. But it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. Did Jesus do that? Who did he grab? 12. Why did he get 12? Bigger. It's sustainable. You see, Jesus is about to take a divine corporate flight back home to his head country. HQ, if you want to call it that. Ministry continues. Right? Acts 1, it says he goes up in the air. It's a nice flight. I want to try it sometime. Did the whole SpaceX thing, Elon Musk? Yeah, Jesus already beat you. He's already flying space. He had the thing with Tesla. Jesus like, I was already here. So he flies out of space and goes off and leaves. The 12 of us are looking like this, or 11. Remember that? Acts 1? They look in the sky and the angel's like, hey, hey. And like, why do you stare up like this? You're next. You're next. You've got to continue this operation. Jesus has just spent years training you, molding you, raising you up. You're going to begin. Where do they start? Where do they begin? What was their organization called? And you got to stop out there. The church. Where was the church before? It wasn't there. Can you imagine waiting until Bill Gates died and then his son starts Microsoft? That's wild. That's nuts. Jesus waited until he resurrected and then the church starts. Have you ever thought about that? He knows something more than you and I know. And there's something he entrusted the very bride of Christ to men and women, just like you and me, just like us. That means we were capable of raising up the greatest organization there ever is. Did you say that? Able men. What did he say? Let them be raised up able men of truth, righteousness, who fear God. These people will take care of the church. Now you can choose to be one of those. You say, I want to step into my calling. Good, be somebody like that. In essence, you are literally agents of God, working through Jesus to raise up an organization which we call the church. Now, again, I asked you this question before. Is there only one McDonald's? No. There's not one McDonald's. There's not one Walmart. There's not one Chick-fil-A. There's multiple ones. So next thing I want you to write is expansion. Expansion. Your calling, your ministry must expand. Would you mind reading Mark chapter 1, 37 through 38? Mark 1, 37 38. It says this, now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, that tells you the kind of CEO he is, he's working before the sun comes up. He went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. That's where he gets his instruction. Verse 36, and Simon and those who were with him searched for him. When they found him, they said to him, everyone is looking for you. But he said to them, let us go to the next towns, that I may preach there also, because for this purpose I have come forth. My friends, that is a challenge for this church. That is a challenge. I'm not saying we're there yet, but we better well understand it when we get to that line. What he's saying is this. In Mark chapter 1, you're going to see that Jesus throws a demon out of somebody, completely shocks the synagogue. Jesus rebukes a fever out of his mother-in-law. And that evening, the entire town shows up at Jesus' hill. What happens? Every one of them gets healed. Every one of them gets delivered. And so they're thinking, hey, this is great. If that were you and me, we'd build a church right there. I'd have a big sign. The Apostle Michael's here. With the green light, like the clock she's there. I'm sorry, what is that? The donut place. Donuts are rolling. I mean, the healings are coming, buddy. That light's at man, still. The healings are coming. The anointing's on. Get this. The oil's hot. So people are coming in. You just sit there like this. Man, it's great. I'm living it up. You know what Jesus does? Kicks the door and leaves. That's nuts. See, for them, they're shocked. They said, we're looking for you. Everybody's, Peter's like, where are you going? The crowd's there. Where are you going? He's like, we got to start it. We got to keep going. For the church to become the organization that it should be, a global power, you can't just sit on your first success. Someone says, I read the Bible. Man, congratulations. No one wants to do that anymore. But if you just park there and tell people 3 years later, I remember the time I shared the gospel. I was in high school. I opened my mouth for the first time. It was great. You're like 35. You're still telling people when you were 17 what you did for God. That's what Jesus would look like. If he still stays in the same city, same town, same group, you burn out. What Jesus is doing, he said, look, I've got enough people. They're coming with me. I'm going to raise them up. They'll take care of it. He expands. Write down your notes. Matthew 10, Luke 9, and Luke 10. Matthew 10, Luke 9, and Luke 10. What are those chapters? It says Jesus sends out the 12. Twice. Luke 9, Matthew 10. And then Luke 10, he sends out how many? How many did he send out? 70. 70. What was he doing? He'd already raised people up. He gave them his authority, his CEO signature. They got a P card. They got a purchasing account. They got all this kind of stuff with them. And they go that way and say, hey, where do you go? Tell them what? The kingdom is at hand. My business structure is here. You can use PayPal and NCG now. That's right. You can get out of here for free, buddy. So that's my point. Jesus is expanding the ministry. He's expanding his organization. With what? Himself? Is Jesus cloning himself? He's sending people just like him. He's sending people just like him. See, what you don't realize is you're not Jesus, but you can be just like him. You can be just like him. You will be his agent, his minister, to expand the kingdom. By default, my friends, the kingdom must expand. How do we do it? Look at Isaiah 9, verse 7, the next verse from Isaiah 9. Look at this. Of the increase of his government. What's that word? Increase. What's the word? Increase. One more time, friends, wake up. What's the word? It says the increase of his business. You know I defined it for you earlier. What is the government? A business of people. What are you doing? An organization of people. That must work. Increase. It must increase. The previous concept was expansion. You go, Michael, how do I expand? I would love to go somewhere else. I've been to Houston. Increase. We must understand increase. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be, what's the word there? No end. Where does it stop? Never does. But you said Jesus went upstairs. You're right. Good job. How does this continue to increase? I'm just going to look at you. Don't look at me. My job is to make you do it. I'm doing my job. Are you doing yours? Your job is to fulfill this. I got to increase this business. We're not done growing. Maybe you're number one on the Forbes list. Congratulations. You're not done. You're not done. You have to have a mindset. A CEO is a man that says, a woman that says, I'm not done. Because I'm not growing, I'm getting weaker. You know why? My competitors are always on the rise. I'll say it again. If you're a businessman and you're not growing, you're weakening because the competitors are looking at your market, your shares, your margins going, I'm targeting him. I'm going to take that back. I want that part of town back. I want the schools back. I heard this prayer in schools. No, we're going to change that law. You follow that? They're always looking to take something back. They want something back. There must be an increase. Increase, my friends, is one of those powerful verses in the Bible. I want to give you the anthem for your boardroom. It's going to be Luke 2:52. The anthem for your boardroom is Luke 2:52. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. Now you're going to say it out loud. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. You want to make that simple? With God, increase in wisdom, stature, and favor. With men, increase in wisdom, stature, and favor. That's why I said Jesus is the most brilliant businessman there is on this planet. There's none wiser. What was the key From a young boy, he's pulling his audience going, hey, do you think anybody would like an iPad? Just from a child, would you like a cell phone? What's that? I think if there's a device, that probably can call you from here to there. We call it prayer. I'll teach you about it. Would you be willing to receive something of God so freely? Oh no, we have all these laws and systems. He said, no, but I'll give it to you freely. He told the Samaritan woman, it's my gift. This man was brilliant. And we need to understand what he got. Wisdom and stature and favor. You know what's really funny about favor? Who gives favor? Who gives the increase? So you're telling me there's a loop like this? You know a loop? You know what a loop is? You ever seen a river empty in an ocean and stop flowing? How does it do that? Why does a waterfall keep pouring down? When does it dry up? This is God's creation, friends, to make us think better. God is trying to teach us that we should always be under the waterfall of God's abundance. The overflow of favor, wisdom, stature. Increase. Increase is like a river flowing in the ocean. Like a waterfall. You're like, why does it keep going? Year after year after year. That is the mindset of a man who sees success. He says, God must continue to increase me so I can increase the organization He's given me, the calling, the business plan. Does that make sense? Because the minute you stop growing, I don't know if you're really staying the same or you're just getting older and maybe not as intelligent. We can never let off. So this is my favorite part, friends. What was Jesus building this whole time? I want to give you these points. You might put it on the screen there. The audience. Remember the first thing He did. The audience and the situation. That was our first step. Then He gave a vision. Then He made it sustainable. He expanded and increased. And what do you get? You get the church. You want to see it again? When was the church created? In Acts 1. Acts chapter 2, actually. He creates a church. What was a church? What are the business principles to make a church operate? The first thing is you must know your audience. If you talk about Rolls Royces all day, you've got a bunch of homeless people in your church, they think you're just arrogant. And they don't really care what you have to say. Jesus came as a homeless man. He started at the bottom. He didn't start as CEO in a suit. He said Jesus became poor for our sakes that we might become rich. Even though He was rich. He knew His audience. Spiritually impoverished, broke people in bondage. He knew their situation. But then He gives them the vision. He says, I have an abundant life to promise you. I will deliver it full. Not like some delayed check that never comes in the mail. He will deliver. That is His vision. He proved it to Peter in Luke 5. Then He made it sustainable. Unlike many organizations today that continue to say, I'll get to you later, I'm real busy. We have to train and raise people up. Otherwise, yeah, you will be waiting for me to call you back. It's not right. We should all rise up to that level. It must expand. You can't just see success and say, I'll be right here, because I don't like hotels. It won't work that way. It won't work that way. Jesus said, foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay His head on. He had to expand. Increase. Luke 2:52. Jesus increased in what? Favor, stature, wisdom with both God and men. These are the principles. And when these apostles stood up in it, they created the church. Now at the beginning of this message, I gave you some terms. Organizations that are more powerful than the church. Toyota, Apple, Walmart, McDonald's, of course. God bless them. Chick-fil-A. I'm going to give you some numbers. How many stores does Apple have? 463. How many stores does Walmart have? 11,700. McDonald's. The hitter. Number one hitter. 36,899. That's tough to beat. How many churches are there right now in this world? How many churches? 100,000? 500,000? Million? 10 million? 30 million? 37 million. 37 million churches. You are part of the most successful organization this world has ever known. Don't let the world tell you anything else. That devil will come up like a tempter and be like, you're a bunch of losers. And yet, he knows you are part of a 37 million strong organization. How are you going to top that? Why? Our CEO, our head apostle, our business visionary is the most brilliant man. If you take every one of those organizations and you combine them together, they still come up short. What's the problem? We need to rise up. We need to continue to elevate our purpose, our goal. And if we just follow this area, you ask God, what am I not seeing in this list? Why is my church not succeeding? I would ask you, would you look at this? Why is my calling not growing? Why am I not seeing the power of God? I would ask you to say, what have you not touched on this list and understood it as I've explained it to you? And well, you know what? Forget Michael. You read the scripture and you tell me what that means to you. And you tell me, where am I weak in this? And I'll tell you, you'll see the real church happen. Every one of us has the opportunity to step into that calling. My friends, there is nobody like Jesus, and there is no organization like His church. And we need to be proud of it. We need to be people that say, we are part of the biggest business structure there is ever going to be. And no one's going to beat it. I want to close on this last point. At the end of the year, at each one of your companies, or maybe you're in school at the end of a semester, what happens? Don't be all shy. You get graded, right? Performance reviews. Do you think Jesus has the right to review our performance? You know, with the parables of the servants, He constantly said, your master will return at the end of the year? Or what? When you least expect it. Come on, guys. Listen. It says, your master will come back when you don't even know. It's like when you've been talking to your friends too long in the water cooler and I walk in the trailer. I give them that look. You'd be surprised, I'm not always that nice. I was looking at them. You got nothing to do? This guy. Why do we treat Jesus differently? Why do we treat Jesus differently? You think He has to appear in body form like Thomas for us to believe it? We should be like, you know what? If the Master comes right now, I'm going to say I did everything I could, but I can do more. I can do more. Now that you're here, I need you. We got to go outside. That's how it should be. If He shows up, I need you right now. We need to go outside. We got to work. There's too many people suffering. There's too many people suffering. I can't stand here. I have too much work to do to talk about it. Let's stand up.